The franchise we're summing up didn't unfold in a strict chronological line and release order. It jumps around in time a lot, so expect origins, alliances, betrayals, and a few retcons. Listen for the through lines, how mutants are introduced to the world, how two rival visions for mutant survival take shape, the recurring threats to mutant existence, and where some of the franchise's most important characters fit into that arc. Origins and early encounters. The movies begin by showing key origin moments across decades. One of the earliest snapshots places us in 1944, where wartime horror and experimentation help introduce a young, traumatized man who later becomes central to the mutant story. That early sequence establishes a tone, humanity's capacity for cruelty, the birth of hard convictions, and the seed of a lifelong vendetta. Meanwhile, in a quieter, rural scene upstate, we meet a young telepath and a girl who can shapeshift. Characters who, as they grow, will become two of the franchise's foundational figures. These early moments serve two functions. They give us intimate origin beats for Magneto and Professor Xavier, and they show the personal history that feeds a decades-long struggle between them. Forming the two poles, by the time the story reaches the early 1960s, those origin threads converge into a powerful rivalry. The former prisoner, hardened into a man wrecked by loss, emerges as Magneto, a figure convinced that mutants must dominate or survive in a world that fears them. Him is Professor Charles Xavier, who believes mutants and humans can coexist. Xavier's school becomes the refuge where young mutants learn control, community, and a hope for integration. Both men recruit allies. Magneto gathers those who see hostility in the human world and answers with force. While Xavier brings together students who want training, safety, and acceptance. This ideological split, coexistence versus dominance, anchors the sagas that follow. Key allies and technologies explained. Along the way, we meet other important players. Hank McCoy, later known as the Beast, is introduced as a brilliant scientist and mutant, someone who can bridge the world of invention and the ethics of its uses. Xavier develops tools like Cerebro, a device that amplifies telepathic reach and can locate mutants across the globe, technology that becomes central to both rescue and abuse scenarios. On the opposite side, government paranoia coalesces into people like Bolivar Trask, a figure who channels societal fear into industry and arms development. Trask's work gives us Sentinels, machines designed to find, track, and eliminate mutants. Those Sentinels are a recurring existential threat in this universe, and their existence turns fear into a weaponized reality. Mystique's arc and rising tensions. Mystique's presence is threaded through many of these moments. She is a shapeshifter, close to Magneto in some eras and an independent force in others. Her choices, sometimes revenge-driven, sometimes survival-driven, ripple across the timeline. In one major arc, she assassinates Trask during a high-level international meeting, an act that momentarily stops a human policy push, but also drives her into open conflict. The assassination and subsequent capture escalate public fear and accelerate Sentinel research, because hidden DNA and captured mutant data become fuel for automated hunting programs. In short, Mystique's personal vendettas change public policy and weapon development, which in turn endangers all mutants. Wolverine and the long view ahead. Another long thread is Logan, the man who becomes Wolverine. His backstory is complex and episodic. Born James Howlett, scarred by family trauma, he discovers bone claws and a powerful healing factor. He and his violent companion Victor Creed, later Sabretooth, survive across wars and century-long conflicts. They are enlisted into questionable military projects, repeatedly experimented on, and betrayed. Wolverine is stripped of memory at various points, given an adamantium skeleton, used as a weapon, and eventually escapes. His life is a wandering series of violent encounters, brief bonds, and a stubborn code of honor. Wolverine often serves as the audience's ground-level point of view, a rugged, wounded survivor who moves through the larger political drama and frequently reconnects with the school for gifted youngsters and its students. Mutant registration, cures, and moral complexity. As mutants become public knowledge, governments and corporations respond with policies and programs that promise control or cure. The films repeatedly stage a moral debate around a cure for mutation. Some see it as liberation, others as genocide under a different name. The cure plots create battlefield scenes where the X-Men protect the vulnerable and confront former allies turned instruments of human policy. These stories force characters to confront hard questions. Is survival worth dominance? Is safety worth surrendering identity? And who gets to decide what counts as a monster? Moments where a cure is weaponized or where Xavier and Magneto briefly cooperate against a greater threat show the franchise's recurrent theme. Alliances shift according to the moment's moral demand. The Phoenix, Jean Grey, and Cosmic Cost. One of the most consequential arcs involves Jean Grey and the emergence of the Phoenix. The Phoenix represents an immense power that destabilizes the moral balance of the group. Its arrival forces personal sacrifice, catastrophic choices, and heartbreaking consequences. Jean's transformation into the Phoenix is not just a personal tragedy for the characters who love her. It becomes a turning point that underlines how raw power can corrupt or compel impossible choices. The Phoenix saga ends with loss, trauma, and consequences that reverberate through the franchise, pushing key characters to hard places and altering loyalties. Many of the films build to confrontations where the X-Men or ragged alliances face engineered catastrophes, brainwashing, replication technologies, and military programs that warp justice into control. Iconic sequences include raids on mutant schools, rescues from weaponized labs like Alkali Lake, and pitched battles over devices like Cerebro or Sentinel factories. These sequences tend to blend personal stakes, rescuing a friend or stopping an execution, with broad sustainability questions. Can mutants live on a planet that fears them? These action beats are coupled with quieter aftermaths, characters fleeing, hiding, grieving, and leaving imprints on the world that later films revisit. The mid and late stage moves and retcons. Over time, the films leap across decades to explore different facets of the timeline. We see Wolverine in Japan, which is a self-contained story about honor, debt, and the attempt to steal his powers. This sequence is often treated as a character chapter rather than a franchise pivot. Later, the timeline will present weird, even startling elements. Characters presumed dead reappear, or the rules of resurrection and continuity shift. These retcons, bringing Charles Xavier back, or presenting characters in seemingly impossible states, are treated in the films as part of the franchise's evolving mythos. They can be confusing, but they also set the stage for crossovers that bend continuity in service of spectacle. The personal heart of the story. Beneath the machines, policies, and cataclysms, the X-Men series keeps returning to a few human elements. One is a found family. The school acts as shelter and as a crucible where young people learn to accept themselves and one another. Another is trauma and recovery. Characters are repeatedly mistreated by institutions, experimented on, or forced into violence, and the stories try to show how they cope, adapt, or break. Finally, there's the question of agency. Who gets to choose how a marginalized group survives? That debate between Xavier's idealism and Magneto's militancy gives the movies moral friction, ideological bite, and recurring drama. How this matters for Avengers Doomsday with the X-Men. If you're heading into a crossover where the Avengers meet mutant politics, these are the narrative building blocks to remember. Expect a collision between ideological holdings, coexistence versus supremacy, plus the technological anxieties that have driven much of the X-Men saga. Sentinel-style automation, mind-tracking devices, and weaponized cures. Expect characters with long, wounded histories to be pushed into choices that echo old betrayals. Expect Wolverine's practical, brutal survival instincts to contrast with more strategic minds. And expect the Phoenix, or a Phoenix-like power, or the legacy of Jean Grey to be a dramatic fulcrum if the teaser hints at cosmic escalation. Finally, expect subtle callbacks. A snippet of Cerebro, a glimpse of Sentinel-like hardware, or a whispered name can all be Easter eggs for longtime viewers. One last bit before you go. If this primer helped, please subscribe to Richard Barron Horror for more breakdowns, reconstruction primers, and cinematic context pieces made for fans who want to watch smarter. And now tell us, what do you think? Will you go see the new Avengers movie that brings the X-Men into the mix? Are you excited to see decades of mutant conflict fold into the larger cinematic universe, or worried the crossover will confuse the timeline further? Drop your thoughts and whether you'll buy a ticket in the comments.